What's the worst experience you've had during Halloween? I was walking home with my friends when I was like 9, and a car of high school kids, or around that age, stole all our candy. 3 hours of work gone. You know, it's kind of funny to call trick-or-treating as like working for your candy, but I suppose it kind of is. Though I'm pretty sure you could just go to Walmart and get a $10 bag that gives you way more than you could get trick-or-treating. My friends telling me they weren't doing anything, only to all hang out all evening while I stayed home alone. Teen years can suck. Hey, I'm home alone every single night, so you get used to it. I was like 7 or 8 and dressed up like an angel. My parents took me to a science museum where they set up little houses for the kids to trick-or-treat in. I got so much candy and was so proud of myself. But when we left, all my candy was gone. The little boy behind me had been taking scoops out of my candy and putting it in his basket. I cried. Man, is it just like the Halloween Hunger Games out there? Do kids just steal other people's candy as a faster way than trick-or-treating? A woman telling me I'm too old to go trick-or-treat. You know, I don't think I ever reached an age where people would like refuse to give me candy, but I think I was probably around 14 when I was kind of like, alright, maybe I should just stop doing this. My problem now, though, is that I love the Halloween season. You know, I love scary movies and scary music and all that stuff, but then I have like nothing to do on the actual holiday. I mean, like when you search for events, it's either a bunch of family stuff for little kids, or it's bars. And I'm just like, well, I don't drink and I don't like bars, so I guess I'm just doing nothing again. I was trick-or-treating with 3 buddies freshman year of high school. We were joking about being a little too old to do it, but it was all in good fun. Some kids 2 years older were running around in skull masks doing rowdy teenager stuff, and decided it would be a good idea to take my candy. They were much larger than us and had no trouble. One grabbed my bag and another one grabbed me and threw me down into the street. No serious injuries, but I skinned my knees and palms. I was pissed. I filed a police report and the officers took it seriously. We got out the yearbook and identified 3 of them, and they were picked up that night. They were charged with strong arms robbery as juveniles and got a ton of community service and had to pay for my mom's lost pillowcase and candy and damaged clothing. I caught some flack for it at school from their girlfriends. They were ordered not to talk to me, but really didn't care because I felt like justice was served. You know, I actually saw some videos recently of people talking about the origins of Halloween. And I think one explanation was like there were so many people that just go out and just cause vandalism and destruction on Halloween night, and so they basically just turned it into a holiday for them. My mom was pretty strict with how much candy I was allowed to eat on Halloween. One year, after some annoying begging, I finally got my mom to say, "Eat as much as you want." Spent about an hour barfing up peanut butter cups and warheads. Hey, it's all part of the special occasion. This happened to my friend. It's Halloween night, and there's a knock on her parents' door. Dad goes to open it, and there's a man with a bag on his head standing on their porch, silent. The man makes a move to step into their house, and Dad pushes him backwards. Everyone watches as the man falls backwards off of their step and smashes his head on the ground. It's revealed that the man with the bag is my friend's grandfather, who was trying to Halloween prank them. He was rushed to the hospital with permanent damage, no longer able to care for himself or his wife, who had health issues as well. They both ended up in convalescent care. Additionally, my friend's mother never forgave her husband, placing the blame of the accident entirely on his shoulders. They divorced shortly after. Well, that escalated quickly. But I mean, it kind of makes sense though. There's gonna be some creeps that try to use Halloween as a cover to be able to break into people's houses, so I guess you gotta be careful. My mom took away all my candy to give to the later kids. I guess that's the candy cycle on Halloween. It's just like, oh, we forgot to buy candy. Hurry, go trick-or-treat quick and get a bunch of stuff so that we can give that out. Junior year of high school, my cousin and I volunteered to drive some of the younger kids from church and chaperone their trick-or-treating. We were walking down the street, back towards my truck, when I hear a sound that was familiar but didn't click at first. I hear it again and feel something whiz past me and hit the concrete. I realized it was someone with a pellet gun about the time one of the little girls screamed this blood-curdling wail and fell down. He had shot her in the eye with a CO2-powered pellet gun. My cousin took off running toward a yard, leaned down and grabbed a hunk of gravel and concrete from the driveway, and chucked it into the tree, and it hit the kid, knocking him from a limb and onto the ground. I'm wrangling 7 kids from 6 to 12 years old, all screaming and crying while my cousin is beating the boogers out of this guy's sinus cavity. Parents are running outside, and it's chaos when the police and ambulance finally shows up. Long story short, the kid with the pellet gun got an assault with a deadly weapon, and another charge, and the little girl, 8 years old, lost her eye from the incident. You know, I didn't really know what I was expecting with this video, but these are a little more messed up than I thought. Getting tear gassed on Polk Street in San Francisco. The mid-1970s, evening, everyone is milling around in crazy Halloween costumes. Lots of fun, very chill, until some a-hole chucks a tear gas canister into the crowd. Pure chaos ensues, and my throat was sore for 24 hours. Man, I think some people take their Halloween costumes pretty seriously. Is this what happens when somebody dresses up as the Joker now? I had costume plans with a friend who chickened out on me and wanted instead to wear her own regular clothes while I was in this ridiculous Ginger Spice costume and pass her clothes off as 80s. Definitely wasn't influenced by her snotty roommate who called me immature for what I wore or anything. I had her drop me off after that and decided to find other plans. Decided to try and hang out with some of my other friends, who were male, but a girl who didn't like me and let them use her for rides, considering none of them were interested in refusing to pick me up and let me hang out with them. So I decided I was going to walk there, about a 7-mile walk. Got a quarter of a mile down the street, tried to cross and got hit by a car. 13 years later I still have the metal in my ankle. Well, that was a roller coaster of a story. I don't really understand why some people are like, oh, I would never wear a costume like that. Unless somebody else wants to do it, then it's fine. Like, if you're going to be really self-conscious about a costume, then just find something else to wear. Not worst, but best. I'm Australian. Halloween isn't really a thing here, but we still get some kids coming to our door at that time of year. One time my mom had no lollies to give, so she just gave this little girl a can of soup we had in the cupboard. That girl was thrilled with the can of minestrone she got. She screamed to her parents, "I got soup!" Wholesome. Yeah, Halloween's one of those holidays that really only works if everybody participates. It's not like so many other holidays where you can just kind of keep it in your house and just invite family over. So it's got to be kind of difficult if you live somewhere where Halloween's just not very popular. I grew up in northern Canada, and when I was probably 5 or 6, I got me a Darth Vader costume. One of those vinyl costumes and capes with a lightsaber and thin plastic mask. I thought I was so cool back then. Well, being in northern Canada, it was exceptionally cold that year, like below -30°C. I went out that evening, bundled up, and ready to show off my cool outfit. But it was so cold, the costume just cracked and disintegrated as I went around the block. Due to the weather, I barely got around the block, but by the time I was home, I just had the lightsaber and mask. The rest of my costume just fell apart in pieces as I moved. Holy cow, I knew that it gets cold way up north, but I wouldn't have expected -30 in October. Like, that's really not the kind of weather that you go outside in. In my 20s, one of my friends would have a giant shindig every year. My ex and I went 3 years in a row, and each year he became more and more of a sloppy mess. The first year wasn't too bad, but the second one he ended up rolling around in the grass in the backyard making a fool of himself. But the third year, we showed up a couple hours early to help our friends set up, but as soon as we got there, my ex decided to take one of those giant yard cups that people carry around in Vegas, and made himself an enormous Long Island iced tea. He drank that thing down in 15 minutes tops. He started to get sick right as people started showing up. He spent the whole night sitting on the back porch vomiting like he was starring in the remake of The Exorcist. And for some reason, his friends thought I should be sitting with him, rubbing his back or something. Screw that. He put himself in that position. He could live with the consequences. It was always his friends who encouraged him to drink like that, so I left him with them and went home. We broke up after that. I don't care if people drink, but what I can't stand is a sloppy drunk that knows they're pushing their limits and keeps going anyway. See, I'm the kind that if I'm at a party where everyone's getting wasted, I'm just there with a crystal clear mind just laughing at how sick everyone is getting from getting drunk. A few years ago, on October 29th, I had an operation on my shoulder, which was closed with 12 staples. On Halloween 2 days later, my young daughter wanted to go trick-or-treating. High on prescription painkillers, I thought it was a great idea to take her. With my arm in a sling, we went trick-or-treating, and I ended up racing her from house to house, between 2 houses. I slipped and fell directly on my arm in the sling. It sucked. I never really thought about it, but I'm kind of surprised you don't see more like 20-year-olds on acid or something just trick-or-treating like that. When I was around 11 or 12, I went out trick-or-treating with a friend. Ran into some older kids my friend wanted to hang out with, so we tagged along. They wanted to go pumpkin smashing. I was a rule follower and didn't want to be around trouble, but I let my friend talk me into it. We come to a house that had a bunch of great pumpkins. You could tell they spent a bunch of time on them. There was a candy bowl with a note, so the kids started destroying the pumpkins. I just watched, feeling uncomfortable. A couple days later, I'm reading the paper and see a letter to the editor from the owners of the house. They listed the address. It said how awful it was and how it wrecked their kids, who spent so much time on the pumpkins. I felt sick. I showed my friends and he thought it was cool and took it to show the other kids. I realized then that our association was more about living on the same street than friendship. I still feel terrible. Yeah, I mean, I definitely don't support vandalism, and maybe you shouldn't go and just destroy people's stuff. But maybe we could move that tradition to, like, November 1st to go around smashing people's pumpkins, because, like, the holiday's over and they're gonna start rotting anyway, so, like, I mean, just wait till after Halloween at least. Someone threw a raw egg at my friends and I from a passing pickup, and it exploded against the back of my head. Such pain. Man, it's like some people see Halloween as just the purge. I went to a small Halloween get-together. Me, my wife, and a few friends, and had a great time playing games and drinking. My wife even got fairly drunk, which is really unusual for her. We go home around midnight and get ready for bed. My wife starts having some abdominal pain, but we don't think anything of it. It's getting close to that time of the month, so not really unexpected. Fast forward an hour later and she's writhing on the bed in the worst pain of her life. I rush her to the ER and the staff there take her into a room and start doing their thing, asking questions and drawing blood. One of them takes me out into the hallway and gives me the worst news I've ever heard. There's a chance that it could be serious, maybe ovarian cyst or some kind of aggressive cancer, and her life could very likely be in danger. Holy crap. I go back into the room and try to keep a strong face for her sake. She hasn't heard any of this, and they've barely started drawing blood to run tests. Then, suddenly, her pain evaporates. Gone. She looks up at a nurse and asks if she had been given any drugs, and was told no. All they'd done so far was draw blood. Turns out it was a kidney stone. A freaking stone. I had the ever-loving crap scared out of me over a tiny little stone. 4 millimeters, as it turns out. Granted, I'm sure it hurt really bad, but even 10 years later, I'm furious that that person had the conversation with me before they even ran any tests. Like, man, I thought I was going to lose her. Yeah, we've never gone back to that hospital. So you go into the emergency room saying that you have stomach pains, and they're like, yeah, you're probably gonna die. We don't know what it is, but yeah, I mean, anyone who has stomach pains, they usually don't make it. I was in the 5th grade and went to trick or treat. I got this pain in my lower stomach, so my mom took me back home. After what my mom saw in the bathroom, we figured out I started my period for the very first time. That's probably the scariest thing you'll see all Halloween. I choked on a gobstopper. Heimlich got it out of my trachea, but then it got stuck in my esophagus, and I got it down with some bread. My throat hurt for days. My parents called an ambulance, but we got it resolved before they came. Super scary. I have 2 young kids now that have been getting gobstoppers and jawbreakers on Halloween since they were 2. I always take them out and throw them away. I mean, I've never really felt like jawbreakers were that good. Like, they're basically just a rock that you suck on that don't even taste very good. My dad was pranking trick-or-treaters by spraying them with a water gun from a window as I gave out sweets. The same guy who my dad pissed off followed me and my friends around the neighborhood with a scary mask on to get revenge when we went out trick-or-treating. So creepy. Well, I hope you guys have a nice Halloween tonight. Since this video is pretty short, let me give you guys some of my favorite horror movie recommendations. And I won't throw in any popular ones that everyone already knows, you know, like Saw or The Shining or Halloween or anything like that. So I have a list on IMDb for every horror and Halloween movie I've ever seen. There's almost 400 titles on it. But here's some of my favorites from pretty much every kind of genre. So one would be The Collection. This is actually a sequel, but you can just watch it on its own. It's pretty gory and really intense, but I just think it's really awesome. Then we have Grave Encounters. This is probably one of the scariest movies that I've ever watched. It's basically like a found footage, like these people doing ghost hunter stuff in a mental hospital, but then it starts getting like actually really intense. Then we have Coherence. Now some might say this isn't a horror movie, it's a psychological thriller, but this is probably one of my all-time favorite movies. Like, I can't really tell you what it's about without spoiling anything, but just know that it's going to mess with your head quite a lot, and it's probably going to creep you out a little bit. Then we have Dead End. Dead End is another kind of psychological one where you're just like, you think you know what's going on, but you don't really know until the end. Then we have Pathology. This movie is basically just a bunch of people who are like experts at performing autopsies, and they make a competition with each other to like see who can perform a murder where nobody else can figure out how they died. Then we have It Follows. You know, I didn't really like It Follows that much at first, but the soundtrack just makes this movie. Like, I have never heard another scary movie with a better soundtrack. Like, it is just so eerie, and it completely creates the whole mood of the movie. So, I mean, even if you don't even want to watch it, just go look up the soundtrack. Like, that's the best part. But anyways, those are just some of my Halloween movie recommendations. If you're getting tired of the same old Halloween and Saw and Hocus Pocus kind of stuff that you watch every year. But I hope you guys have a good Halloween, and I'll be uploading again tomorrow.